Hi, my name is Peter Davos, founder and CEO of Hale Education, and welcome to the Admission Possible podcast. My guest today is Arnav Kedia, who graduated from GEM's World Academy here in Dubai and just finished his first year at Columbia University. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, just finished my first year at Columbia and I can't believe it's already been a year.
I can't believe it either. What's it like? What's the big bad city like? New York is a place that I think a lot of people like to visit as tourists, but living there is really quite different.
I mean, I'm really happy there. I've always been a big city person, grew up in Dubai my entire life. So I really appreciate the fact that I'm living in a global city. Reminds me a lot of being back at GWA in Dubai. It obviously has its, let's say, nuances, being in New York. But
what are some of those nuances? Share some with us.
Let's just say I've gotten used to the subway in a year. It's been a hard journey, but I've got there eventually.
An exciting one though, no?
Exciting one, definitely. Yeah, it's been a great experience overall. I think Columbia's campus is in a great location, not being in the very touristy area of New York.
No.
It feels like a college town almost, like in the 6 or 7 streets surrounding the campus.
So I think Morningside Heights as a geographic entity was created by Columbia so they could not call it Harlem. Did you hear that rumor? Is that a rumor or is that a fact?
I think it leans slightly more towards fact. But
okay.
Yeah. No, it's been a great area overall, and I've really enjoyed my first year.
And what's great is you have a beautiful campus there, right? Because most city schools don't have a campus. Like NYU, if you go downtown, obviously it's not quite the same
Exactly.
experience.
I met a few friends at NYU, and it was really unsettling to see just buildings scattered around the city. I feel, well, let's say my mom feels much safer knowing that there's a campus which I can call my home, my university. But at the same time, you have the flexibility of going around New York as well.
Yeah. So have you gone down to Times Square and take some pictures with the Spider-Man and I don't know, the other superheroes over there?
Let's just say that's part of Columbia's orientation program.
No, stop. Come on.
I'm serious. It's called Explore NYC and yeah, I got to meet Spider-Man a couple of times.
Okay. And I think you had like the worst, there were lots of options and you could go to a Yankees game or something, but you pulled the short straw on what you had to do. Didn't you work in the library or something?
Yeah. So my program was called, I forgot exactly, I think it was CARE.
Okay.
And it was the community service orientation program. So some of my friends were going camping upstate. Some of my friends were going on a ferry to see the Statue of Liberty. And I was helping out the New York Public Library.
What were you doing there? Sweeping floors? What were you doing?
Arranging books. Thankfully, it wasn't sweeping floors.
Do you know the Dewey Decimal System now? Like if I quiz you on it?
Thankfully, it was only for a week.
But literally, like, people are doing all this fun, exciting stuff, and you're sorting books basically in the stacks.
It wasn't the most exhilarating orientation week, but it was still good. Yeah.
But you know, what's interesting is that, you know, when I had seen you at the end of your high school journey, right, when you had graduated, you were going to go to Berkeley and you had gotten into the Berkeley MET program, which I think accepts 50 or 60 kids a year, which is the management, entrepreneurship, and technology. And you were really excited about that. But then I'm like, I don't know if you emailed me or someone told me, it's like, no, he's at Columbia. So what happened there? What led you to Columbia ultimately and away from Berkeley?
A very difficult decision personally. Like, I think we always say the most important thing is to find your fit. And the best thing about Berkeley was the fact that I'd gotten into the MET program and I felt that was the perfect fit for me in terms of my interests.
Yes.
I guess since we've known each other, it's always been technology plus business.
Yes.
And just having that program was phenomenal. I think the main thing that swayed me more towards Columbia was, I guess, the overall university as a whole.
Interesting.
With Berkeley, again, like being a big city person, I wasn't sure if I'd find my fit in a
suburb of San Francisco.
Like very different, like geographically. And I think I felt like I needed that structure of having like I just felt like Columbia was slightly more structured with the way everything was approached.
Okay.
Like with Berkeley, well, safety was one concern as well initially. And I just feel like the MET program was the selling point.
Yes.
But I just wasn't sure about everything else.
The university.
The university as a whole. Like with
infrastructure.
The infrastructure and also the class sizes.
Yeah.
I've just felt like there was like a very big decision to make in terms of the university as a whole rather than just looking at the program. For me, the biggest like transition, I guess, was once I saw that Columbia actually offered a dual program as well, which then made me sway my academics as well slightly more towards Columbia. With Columbia, initially, I'd applied for the Engineering Management System concentration, which is a program within the Industrial Engineering Department at Columbia Engineering. and that was the most flexibility that I could get. But I was always targeting a dual degree since I wanted to explore both my interests in engineering and business. Once I noticed that Columbia actually offered a dual program between Columbia Engineering and Columbia College, I was basically sold.
Yes.
Because all the other aspects of the university appealed slightly more to myself and my family. And
Smaller classes.
Exactly.
Private university.
Especially with the clubs as well, like having more opportunities. I felt like overall everything else kind of clicked in place once I got the opportunity to do a dual program there as well.
Yes.
So yeah, and I feel like there's also more flexibility given that I've always been the kind of person that has enjoyed studying
interdisciplinary.
everything. Exactly. Interdisciplinary.
Yes.
The way I put it is just study everything. Like I've always been hungry for learning different areas. And I think that Columbia's being I guess you typically look at it as a liberal arts institution.
Yes.
It wouldn't really be the place for tech entrepreneurs or someone wanting to make a change with technology.
Yes.
But I think that kind of appealed to me in a way. At Berkeley, I felt like I might be one of thousands of kids that want to be the next tech entrepreneur, the next founder of Apple or Google.
But don't you think, just to play devil's advocate, by virtue of being in the MET program, you're already in kind of the best of the best. You've already been, kind of identified for being special, right? So were the benefits potentially of being in that program still not enough to sway you to stay there or to commit to Berkeley?
Yeah, again, very difficult. I think one of the things that I found with MET was, I was discussing this, I think, with my counselor at Hale as well, and yourself. With MET, I found that the benefits of the MET program were limited in the sense that everything else was still doing Berkeley engineering and doing, I think it's business classes.
School, yeah.
And again, you had the bigger class sizes and everything. I felt the majority of the benefit of MET came in the extra exposure outside of academics.
Yes.
But then, so that included like internship opportunities, research opportunities. One caveat that I found there was that majority of those were actually more tailored towards domestic students in the US as well. For international students, getting those internship opportunities,
they couldn't guarantee.
Exactly.
Yes.
So again, like incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I just felt like overall, like even Columbia itself is a very tailored, like it's a pretty small cohort.
For engineering,
for engineering especially,
tiny, yeah.
It's only, I think, 350 kids in my, up to 350 kids.
Out of a total student population of?
I know the total student population between engineering and college is about 1,800 per class.
So you're looking at 20% of the kids are in engineering.
Exactly, 20%. And it was a pretty small group. And again, if you're talking about like having that distinction, I felt like I wrote about this in my application essay as well for Columbia, and I didn't think it would click then, but I guess it did eventually. I said like Columbia is probably the school where you're going to go if you want to become a philosopher or if you want to become someone like specializing in psychology or the liberal arts. Really isn't the place for tech entrepreneurship. But then I kind of like refuted that claim in my application essay because I found that actually Columbia's Organization of Rising Entrepreneurs, which I'm now a part of, is one of the most vibrant communities on campus.
Wow.
And again, like every time I mention that even on campus that I'm doing engineering plus econ is something that stands out because it's not something that you hear of often like on Columbia's campus. So I think that having that diversity, like despite having the structure of, let's say, the core curriculum and Columbia's traditional like humanities focus, is actually really refreshing. And I think that's something that dates back to like being an IB student my entire life as well.
Because you did MYP, PYP,
I did PYP, MYP,
MYP,
DP. So my 15 years in GWA Dubai were all IB. And it really like trained me to enjoy the humanities and English as well and languages in general. I remember, I think even you were shocked when I did my extended essay for IB in English. Like most people, even my classmates would have expected that I did physics or math. But I chose to do English instead because I felt like that's where I could express myself the best in a longer form piece of research. I think being someone that has enjoyed like exploring those diverse subjects, Columbia has really appealed to me in that sense. Like,
and you do that through the core, obviously, which is imbued into the curriculum, which scares a lot of people away from applying.
Oh yeah, believe me, like the majority of my friends in engineering are terrified of the core. I don't blame them, and they're IB students themselves.
And they're suffering.
Suffering.
but they only have to do it for 1 year, right? If you're an engineering student, your core is 1 year, but if you're arts and science, you have to do it 2 years. So what they don't want to read Plato, they don't want to read
not
the
particularly.
Odyssey. Not at all.
I don't think the Odyssey and the Iliad are most
not on the top of their reading list. I
just feel like generally like it's just such it just makes you a more interesting person. I think
I
that's
agree.
the best way I can put it. Like,
I agree.
I feel like most people are scared of the core curriculum because it's called a core, so you think it's just like a traditional set of requirements that you just need to tick off, like general ed requirements in other universities. And of course, there is some structure, some like rigidity to it.
Yes.
But at the same time, there's so much flexibility in the areas you can explore. Yes, you have to read the Iliad. Yes, you have to read the Odyssey. You have to read like works of famous philosophers. But at the same time, we have a global core element where you can like decide which regions of the world you want to explore further and take classes in those fields. You have to do PE in whichever sport you're interested in. So I'm continuing with badminton that I did in high school.
Fun.
You get to choose your language. So I'm continuing the Spanish that I learned in 7 years in school. I don't feel like I'm wasting it right now.
And it comes in handy in New York.
Oh yeah, it does.
I know when I go to New York
Absolutely.
and Miami, they speak to me in Spanish most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, it happens every time I go to a bodega.
Nice.
Yeah, or I pay a toll or something. Yeah, yes.
No, I remember talking to one of my Uber drivers in Spanish, so that was really refreshing. Like, and yeah, you just get the opportunity. Even the arts and music humanities, being in New York is just such a vibrant and interesting subject.
Yes.
I just think like.
I mean, there's no more exciting place to be in terms of culture in the US.
100%.
Right?
And I think they really like try and embed that within the curriculum.
Yes.
I mean, even going to like the New York Public Library in my orientation week, I guess it was like trying to take advantage of the city and what it offers in a way.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it feels like I'm going to leave like my program getting a knowledge of almost everything except medicine, which I've never really liked.
That's okay.
Yeah, aside from that, like everything from politics to engineering
Yes.
to math to econ to computer science to
Yes.
the humanities to the arts, it feels like you're going to end up with as a very well-rounded person who's able to like tackle anything that the world was going to throw
I
at
think
you.
that's where most of the ideas come from. It's not from the purely technical people. You have to be a little bit creative, right?
You have to like. I've seen people at Columbia as well who are like just writing code the entire day.
Yes.
And that's the last thing that I want to be. Like, I think I've always thought from day one that I could never be like a programmer at the back of an office, nor do I just want to be like a guy like giving motivational speeches like to the company. I want to be somewhere in between.
Yes.
I've always enjoyed being someone who's able to understand like all aspects of a company, whether it be the tech, the operations, the business,
Yes.
marketing. Someone who's able to like be
And ideation and innovation.
the ideation
and
and
new
innovation,
ideas.
especially. Yeah, exactly.
So how do you think AI is for, I was reading that Microsoft now, 30% of its coding is done by AI. What's going to happen to those pure coders, in your opinion, the guys who are only writing code and they're kind of siloed in just that, kind of universe?
It's going to be difficult. And I mean, the engineering CS job market is already pretty difficult. And so is finance. Is just really competitive. I think being someone who has the specializations like within both fields, like just with the dual degree is going to be really important. And then beyond that, like the extra courses that you've taken, it just adds character. I think the main thing, like whether, like even at university, when you're applying to clubs, the main thing that they're looking for is character.
Yes.
Before any technical interview, it's going to be a personality or behavioral interview.
You have to pass that hurdle first.
You have to pass a hurdle first. And I think that's the same for any job. Like I've been speaking to recruiters at Columbia for various jobs in my first year as well. The first thing they want to see is your character, the way that you present yourself, and what you bring to the table as a person, not as a...
Can you have a conversation?
Can
Are
you
you
have a conversation?
personable? Are you well informed?
You're not a resume at the end of the day.
That's
like,
right.
You're trying to condense yourself into one PDF, but they're not hiring a PDF, they're hiring a person. So
Yeah. And I think what's interesting at Columbia is that these clubs, not everybody can join.
yeah, I
It's
remember
not like I can rock up and show it. So it's very competitive.
I think especially on the finance business econ side, since you're in New York, many people want to just graduate and become investment bankers or work in finance. So I think the finance clubs are probably finance and consulting are really competitive.
So how competitive are they? What's the process?
It's like a 3% acceptance rate
It's
for
like
some
getting
of the
into
most
Columbia
competitive-
again after you've already
Essentially.
gotten into
yeah,
Columbia.
basically. Yeah, it's difficult. And again, that's where I feel I've grown as a person over the last year. Because with each club, you obviously have your resume and application round. After that, you're going to have at least one behavioral interview. You're going to have a technical interview, then a final round. It's, very difficult.
It's harder than getting into Columbia because you didn't have to go through 4 rounds of interviews.
It's
for
the same as
Columbia.
getting a job, basically. Like
Yes.
it feels as competitive in some cases. But I think that's helped me develop as a person because I know now much more confidence in interviews. I know how to sell myself better. I know in an application, like especially after writing so many essays for college as well,
Yes.
how to present yourself well. Like when you just have to write words instead of like presenting yourself through an interview. I think having that opportunity has, I mean,
It's a lot of personal growth. And
exactly lots of
perspective.
growth, and it's giving
Yeah.
me an edge as well. I feel
Yeah.
right now where I just feel more prepared to like tackle things when I have to eventually apply for jobs as well. So it's been a good training ground in a way.
By virtue of being in that club or those clubs, how many clubs are you into that are highly competitive?
I'd say about 4 right
4.
now.
Which ones are they?
So it's the Columbia Consulting Group, the Columbia Impact Investing Network, Emerging Market Society,
Wow.
and Organization of Rising Entrepreneurs.
And all of those have single-digit acceptance rates?
Under 10%.
Under 10%.
The most competitive one is the Consulting Group.
Yes.
But yeah, all under 10%.
Okay. So by virtue of being in those clubs, I'm guessing that employers know that there's a very diligent screening process to get into that. So will that help you later when you interview?
100%. And I think it's more so like the mentorship that they know that's embedded within those clubs. Like these clubs, it almost feels like a community where they know that if you're part of that community and you're part of that network, you've gained extra exposure beyond someone who's not. With the consulting group, like every year a handful of the members of the club get into MBB consulting. So they know that you've been trained and exposed within that network. There's so much professional development embedded.
It's not just the filtering process. It's
also
the knowledge you've acquired.
It's the knowledge you've acquired.
Yes.
And it is the process as well, like of being filtered out. Obviously that helps. And I guess the same for universities in some cases as well.
Yes.
But it's more like they know that that's almost like a training ground, like for a job in that field, if that makes sense. Like the consulting group is the best preparation that you could get to be an actual consultant
Makes
after
sense.
graduation.
Yeah. But for you, I want to know how difficult is it, because you're pursuing dual degree from, both the School of Engineering and the School of Arts and Sciences, which is going to take you 5 years instead of 4. Now you're a member of 4 highly selective clubs. How hard is it to balance academics with your commitments to those clubs? And you have other things that you're doing as well, right?
It's difficult. And I think that's also by virtue of being at a difficult university academically. Like it does push you, and doing 2 rigorous degrees, like that the classes you're going to take every semester are going to have some level of, pretty high level of rigor. I think the main thing that you can do is structure your classes like in a way that you leave 1 or 2 easier elective classes every semester to kind of balance out the workload. Like I know that I'm going to have to take some sort of math or physics class like probably every semester. I know that I'm going to have to take some econ requirement probably every semester. But if you can try and balance the other classes out accordingly, it really helps. And this is something I wish I knew before coming in.
Interesting.
I think the main way to like balance out between your academics and the clubs is just to make sure that you have a schedule for each semester where you're pushing yourself to the extent where you're going to meet the requirements and the credits to graduate.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're not overdoing it at any particular point.
At the expense of your GPA.
At the expense of your GPA, at the expense of your other commitments.
Wellness.
Your mental wellness. Exactly. Yeah. It's a difficult thing to balance. And I think this is something we spoke about. Like,
yes.
I just wish I had that insight a bit more going into college, because the first semester was difficult, and it's hard to like understand the American like education system initially coming from an entirely IB background.
Yes.
The concept that one professor can completely like ruin your GPA.
Well, that's another really big factor, is that you might have a class, but there are 3 sections taught by different professors.
Exactly.
And the professor that teaches you plays a tremendous role in your performance, right? So talk a little, I don't think a lot of maybe people listening or watching understand, the impact that professor could have on your experience.
Yeah. This was something really new for me, and because in IB or in school in general, you're always like allocated a teacher, at least in the IB system, and I think in the British as well. The concept of choosing a teacher was very different, and for me, I did global politics as my humanities subject in IB, despite doing a financial econ degree right now.
Yes.
So I needed to take an introductory econ class at Columbia. That introductory econ class has
probably one of the most popular there.
It is, yeah. It was, firstly, I was on the wait list for a long time, so it was hard to get in. Yeah. Basically, the way registration works is that you have an allocated registration timing, which is purely by chance. In my first semester, during orientation week, I got my timing, and it was a pretty bad registration timing. I think I was in the last hour of registration.
Oh boy.
Which, not good at all.
Not going to be slim pickings by the time you get to the last hour.
Basically. I was stuck on quite a few wait lists. And for econ, I had no idea like what the system was with choosing professors. So I just went with the timing that seemed most convenient, and I chose that professor. And it turned out that that professor was actually the hardest, most strictest grader like within the econ department.
Dr. Evil from Austin Powers.
That's a bit of an exaggeration. I don't want to be mean, but
yes.
So basically, like they say that I read reviews afterwards. I didn't know that there were reviews beforehand, but
That you would have maybe done something a
I
little
found a
different
review
than-
website afterwards
Yeah.
for like a professor at Columbia, and it turned out
What's it called? Rate Your Professor?
Culpa at
Okay.
Columbia. Yeah.
Culpa.
So on Culpa, it said
Yeah.
that you can take this class and do well if you've had prior econ experience before, but if you're learning econ from scratch, it isn't
Yes.
recommended. And I wish I'd known that beforehand.
That's just because that specific professor wanted to load you up with a lot of additional
Exactly.
work that the other two professors didn't.
And at Columbia, it's more rigorous because the introductory econ class is micro and macro combined. So yeah, that professor was a senior lecturer, so they wanted to try and load more information beyond what was required in the course. My friend who was also learning econ for the first time also didn't know that Culpa existed. He chose a professor that was much easier randomly because that worked with his schedule at that time. And yeah, his professor gave multiple choice homework assignments.
Yes.
While mine gave 12-page problem sets.
Oh my goodness.
So
wow.
yeah, it was a big disparity,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I just wish I knew that going in, because
Yeah.
I could be confident that I would have performed much better in econ. Again, at the beginning it was difficult. The midterm didn't go as well, but by the final I'd made it up, and
Good.
my grade was okay at the end.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is just taking that as a lesson that you have to learn early on.
Would you have done it differently knowing what you know now?
100%. I would have gone for the
Because you felt like you did a lot of extra work that wasn't necessary and a lot of, kind of pain and suffering that you could have foregone and spent on, the time spent on other things.
It's not even the extra work, because
Yeah.
I've never been someone to shy away from work. I've always been a hard worker. For me, it was more like just getting the information that I needed from an introductory econ course.
I understand.
Since I was coming in brand new to the subject,
Yes.
I would have preferred just knowing what I needed to know for the purpose of an introductory
Easing
course,
into it, yeah.
rather than going into more advanced level content.
Yeah.
Because it's only one semester, and a semester goes by so quickly. It's
Yeah.
only 3.5
What
months
were
or so.
some of the advanced concepts that you covered?
I don't remember now exactly,
You
but
want to forget.
I can't, because I have to take econ again this semester. But basically, we went into like intermediate level content rather than sticking to the
Right.
introductory.
Right.
So I would have preferred if we just stayed like
Stuck to the script.
exactly,
Yeah.
and there is no script.
Yeah.
The whole point is like every professor is going to teach it in a different way, depending on how they have to, or how they want to. So I think you just need to get used to that beforehand. And in that case, knowing people from beforehand, connecting with some seniors like before you go.
Best
is the
source of
best-
information
exactly.
is, your
best
older
thing you could do.
peers, your older classmates. Yes.
Yeah. I just feel like if I'd had that community beforehand, it would have been more helpful. I haven't seen a lot of people from Dubai at Columbia, so I didn't like.
But you
know,
ran into Wean
I did,
Wilson,
yeah. We were both starting out together in freshman year, but I didn't know anyone in sophomore or junior year. So if I had that community beforehand, it could have probably been better.
Yes.
But I think it's a learning lesson, and January for spring semester registration, it went much better, and I was really happy with
Good.
all my professors.
You had
so-
your legs under you and you knew
exactly.
yeah.
And I think it's just natural to like in the process
Everybody
of settling
goes
down.
through that in different ways when they go to university.
Exactly.
The first semester, it's an adaptation phase.
100%.
Do you have any courses graded on a curve?
I think just about every course at Columbia is on
And
a
what's
curve.
the curve?
It depends.
B or a B minus?
Look, it
or-
depends per class. Like the majority of classes are curved on a B plus B border.
Okay.
Um,
That sounds generous. That sounds pretty nice.
not bad,
Yeah.
but yeah, again, it depends. Like econ, that particular class was curved on a B minus border, which wasn't great. There's some like introductory classes that are
Yeah.
graded more generously on a A minus border. So
Wow.
yeah, there's one.
amazing.
Yeah, so it completely depends on the class, on the professor, how strict they are,
yeah.
and that's why it's so important to like choose your schedule wisely during
Yes.
registration timing,
Yeah.
because that's going to influence how your entire semester goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember at Hopkins, I had a lot of friends who were biomedical engineers, and they used to call us the arts and crafts students, not the arts and science, disparagingly. So I don't know if that term still
That's
exists.
humiliating.
You should bring that back if it doesn't. But they had classes that were graded on a C minus curve.
Yeah, I might
I'm
have
like-
a few of those moving onwards. Let's see how it goes. But
For me, I couldn't believe it because, if you're doing biomedical engineering at Hopkins, right? You are, top 5% of your, class coming out of high school for sure. And you're doing, the most difficult, challenging, major that's there. And you've probably never seen a B in your life.
yeah,
So imagine you go into that class and you're exactly average, and then you get a C minus. Like that's got to be jarring and shocking.
look, and for me coming in, that was a big shock as well, because it felt very different, like to high school in Dubai.
Yes.
Because at Columbia, especially, like it felt like almost every schools, like especially amongst the international students and even the domestic ones, it felt like it was almost like every school is valedictorian in one university.
Yes.
Like the majority of people were saying that they were the valedictorian of their high school, and that was just a really big like eye opener for me.
Yes.
Because it felt like suddenly you're like immersed in
You're average.
You're average, yeah.
You're still exceptional, but you're still average in
exactly.
this setting.
I was valedictorian in my school.
Yes.
But that didn't mean
Perfect
anything.
45, right?
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah.
And I met a bunch of other 45s as well
Yeah.
at Columbia.
Everybody's wearing 45s like Jordan when he came back to the Bulls. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very different. And,
Yeah.
But then everyone is like in one pool together. It was an encouraging environment because it pushed me to be better. It pushed me
Yes,
to try
of
harder.
course.
And at the same time, I realized that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. For me, since I'd done chemistry higher level in IB, the introductory chemistry course that we had to take as engineers
Yeah.
was much easier for me compared to people that had done standard level or hadn't done chemistry at all in high school.
Or even AP chemistry,
Exactly.
right? So this is something that I continue to say. I love the IB, full respect, you know, the most rigorous curriculum, the most comprehensive. I feel like the IB students have the easiest transition to university compared, especially to British curriculum and even American curriculum. Did you observe that? Or even kids who came from Indian curriculum, for example? What was your experience and observations? What were they?
I mean, that's what I've heard from most people.
Yeah.
And this is what people kept telling me
Yeah.
when I was going to university
Yeah.
as well. I would disagree, weirdly
Wow.
enough. Yeah. Like, I'd say like in the UK, my friends who've gone to universities in
Yeah.
London, around the
I'm
UK.
talking about going to US universities. Never, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, it just feels in general the
Yeah.
difference is since you're focusing on so many different classes, choosing so many different requirements,
Yes.
like it kind of reduces the disparity like between the curriculums in a way. It feels like everyone has covered like the same amount of content like beforehand. Everyone like there might be slight differences, but it feels like in their style of learning, everyone's able to like approach the university in a different way. Like I know kids who went to British schools who are like, or Indian schools, who are like able to like learn the content through textbooks.
Yes.
I've never been a textbooks person. I've always been like PowerPoint videos,
Experiential,
questions,
yeah.
solving problems.
Yeah.
So I was able to approach it my way.
Yeah.
But I feel like the difference really gets nullified in a way. I feel
Interesting.
like again, it depends per subject. Like
Yeah.
having done IB chemistry, I feel in a way I was more prepared than my peers like to tackle the introductory chemistry class.
Yes.
But in physics, I felt the AP students were in a way more prepared than me.
But there they have 3 different physics classes.
Exactly.
And
They have- yeah,
so
so
you
the-
can mechanics. And
You can do
yes,
mechanics
yeah, yeah.
separately. So I
Yeah.
felt like their knowledge, like since they did mechanics separately, like for
They
an AP,
specialize
was
in-
much more
yeah,
specialized.
yeah, yeah.
They covered more in-depth content than I had in my general IB physics course.
Yes.
So again, it's really hard because you can't
Interesting.
generalize.
Interesting.
But math, for example,
Yeah.
I felt like I was able to approach it better than AP students because I covered some more content in my IB HL course.
You did HLAA.
I did
right?
HLA.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some students who had done Calc BC were able to skip a certain requirement that I wasn't. So it just really depends.
Kind of evens out in the
really
end
evens
somehow.
out. Like
Yeah.
I'd say math and physics overall. It just you can't even make a generalization out of it. It really depends.
Interesting. What's the course you're looking forward to most this year? The most out of the box fun course that you're excited about?
The most fun one, I'd say, well, not the most fun, but I'd say the most out of the box one is literature humanities.
Okay.
Which is like the jewel in the Columbia core crown.
The
in a
great
way.
works.
Exactly, the great
Yes.
works. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a good break. I have to take the next level of applied math. I have to take the next level of physics. But I'm looking forward to having a break in a way. Like most people, even in Columbia College, don't really like Lit Hum because
Really?
it's very demanding. Like
Yeah.
it's
Every
a lot
week
of
you're reading like
you're reading
500,
every week.
600
You have to write
pages.
responses.
Yeah.
You have to write
Yes,
essays.
Yes. Yes.
There's finals, midterms for every
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it because it's gonna like activate like a different part of me compared to the math and physics. And I'd say I'm planning on doing a sustainability minor.
Oh.
So I'm taking a Better Planet by Design class as well. Again, I talked about like trying to balance out the heavier requirements with some easier classes.
Yes.
And I feel like although that should be an easier class than others, it'll still be interesting to kind of like develop some like different knowledge to
Yes.
everything else. So
I remember at Hopkins we had a school guided tour of the planets, also known as Rocks for Jocks. It was tough. I was taking it for my science distribution requirements. It was not an easy course, so I hope this will be an easier one for you. Very good. When we look here at, if you look at the TV or the internet, it makes like, they portray Colombia as being like constantly under occupation, civil unrest, protests. You just were there for a year. What was your experience? What did you see? What did you live?
It was different. I'd say living in Dubai my whole life, it was different to be exposed to something else. But I'd say at the same time, like, as a student, it doesn't affect your day-to-day life in a way. I think
Is it because it's isolated in one building or one part of the campus, or it's happening at certain time and you just know not to go over to that area?
not necessarily.
Yeah.
I think when it happens, you become accustomed to it. But at the same time, the most important thing is to just, I'd say, focus on what your individual goals are. If you want to be involved in it, then that's your choice.
It's there.
Yeah, it's there. But at the same time, if you don't, then you have a choice. I think the main thing is just know what your individual ambitions are, know what your individual goals
priorities.
are. Your
as well.
priorities, yeah, exactly. Your priorities.
Yeah.
And focus on developing those.
Nothing will interfere with that if you don't want to get pulled into. It's not like a vortex that sucks you in. And
It's
then
a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. That's really interesting. Good. And then overall safety, you didn't have any issues or, I don't know, incidents that impacted you?
No, not really. I think, again, moving to the US, that was something that I was a bit unsure of.
Yes.
And living in Dubai, it's almost like living in a bubble. I think that's what most people say.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's why I was scared. Like, I remember, like, the day I was meant to fly out as well, like, with my mom and I, we were pretty, like, scared, like, contemplating life in a way.
Oh, my God. Oh, boy.
No, but it's been good. I think
Well, you weren't at the gate and you were like, oh, my God, should I go back? Yeah.
No, thankfully not. Like, I would have regretted it massively.
Yes.
But it feels like, since you have, like, a gated campus, I think it helps a lot with Colombia.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for, like, all universities. And again, it depends on the specific university, what you've chosen to be the right fit for you. But I think Colombia having a gated campus helps a lot. The accommodation for the first year is on campus, and, like, beyond that is...
It's up to you, right? You can choose
It's
to be
up
on
to you,
campus,
but all
or-
the campus, like, the housing provided by Colombia is all around the campus directly. So next year I'm living in a building that's 15-second walk away from campus, even though it's
Amazing.
not directly on there. So that helps a lot.
Amazing.
Like, again, Morningside Heights is kind of your community.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Fun. Tell me, what's the coolest New York experience you've had, like outside of Columbia and the campus? What has been something that really has, impacted you in a memorable way?
Well, one thing straight off the bat is definitely the snow. I think, like, again, being in Dubai 15 years, you're used to 50-degree summers. I think it snowed the day before I left for winter break.
Okay.
So that was actually really cool. Although it impacted my flights and my mom was really stressed about whether I'll land
Oh
in
my
Dubai.
goodness.
But aside from that, it was really cool to have that different lifestyle in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it was one of the first times we really clicked, like, you're living in a different place, you're living on your own now, and you get to experience, like, a new side of the world.
Yes.
I'd say aside from that, one of the most memorable experiences was cycling on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, wow.
You had a great view of the city, and yeah, it was really nice.
That's cool. Was that just something you did on your own, or with
Oh,
a group
something I
of
planned with
friends?
my friends.
That's
yeah.
really great. Another thing I want to talk about is social integration, right? You came from one of the most diverse schools in Dubai in terms of nationalities, right? Big international student presence in Colombia. And sometimes I feel like international students don't want to get outside their comfort zone. If they're Indian, they only want to hang out with Indians because that's familiar to them. But tell me a little bit about how you've been able to make friends. How difficult was it to integrate socially into the campus? Do you think it's an inclusive place? What's that experience been like for you?
Honestly, I was surprised. Like, again, I think GWA was like 100 nationalities or something, one of the most diverse schools in the world, I'd say, probably. And going to Colombia, I was scared because I thought that it's going to be, well, very American and, like, I don't know whether there was going to be a strong international population. But at that point, my
You
friends...
looked at the numbers, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By that point, my friends who had gone to public universities had already said that the majority of the population was American. There was barely any international
And they were
students.
from that state, right?
They were
If you
from
go
that
to
state,
Wisconsin,
exactly.
you're from
Majority were-
Wisconsin.
exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so going in, I knew Colombia would be more international because I think it's about 18% international, which is one of the highest in the US. But it was really refreshing to see, honestly. I think I've met people from all around the world.
Yes.
Obviously from India, but from Brazil, from Vietnam, from just basically everywhere. Paris. I think it felt a lot like Dubai in a way. It felt like home because you were exposed to people from so many different places. I remember I went to watch Formula One with some people that I met in orientation from Brazil,
Wow.
which was really nice as well.
Cool.
It felt like cultures intertwining, and I think that's the
Yeah.
benefit of being in New York as well. Like it really feels like Dubai in a
Yes.
very distinct way.
Yes.
But like that international.
It's a little bit more
vibe.
color in New York, a little bit more more colorful characters there.
Exactly.
But it is a melting pot, as we say.
It's a melting
Yeah.
pot. You're gonna see Spider-Man once in a while as well,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's good.
And the Hulk. Let's not forget about him. But that's really great. And any advice that you'd give now? Obviously, you've done your first year. You went through a very, difficult decision to make the right choice. But clearly, you have no regrets, and you're at the
Zero
right place,
regrets,
which
yeah.
is amazing. So it worked out for you. But for students, that are looking now, that are 9th grade, 10th grade, thinking a few years ahead, what would you tell them, knowing everything that you know now?
I think we underestimate it sometimes when we're applying, but fit is really important. That's something that your counselors keep telling you. They keep telling your parents, and I think many people underestimate it. They construct a college list just based on the rankings or just
Yes.
based sometimes even randomly.
Do you think that rankings emphasis comes more from the parents or the students or both?
I think both. It depends on
Both.
the
It
student, it
depends.
depends on the parent.
Yeah.
But I think just generally there is a emphasis on rankings, but I think it's really hard to just base because look, you're living in the place that you're going for at least 4 years about 4 years.
Yes.
You're literally moving your entire life from Dubai to that particular place. And it's going to be a big move that's going to influence
Yeah.
the way your life is going to go beyond that point. So
Yes.
it's not something you can take lightly. Berkeley is definitely ranked higher for mechanical engineering compared to Columbia.
Yes.
But that's not something that I would let influence my choice. I think you have to be very deliberate in the way that you're choosing your application list in a way
And
that
how can you do that effectively? What are the things that somebody can do
I think
that's researching and maybe can't visit or maybe doesn't have the opportunity to go to the US to see in person?
well, obviously visits would be great, but I
Yes.
think beyond that, try and envision what your life would look like at that particular university. I was fortunate enough to visit Columbia,
Yes.
and although it wasn't really towards the top of my application list, but at the same time, like I felt much more comfortable going there once I knew that
You could visualize
I could
yourself
visualize
there.
myself
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that you can do, like if you aren't visiting, is to try and almost pinpoint what your life would look like whether that would be the clubs that you're going to be a part of. Don't just write club superficially for the application essays.
Right.
Think about genuinely what you'd be interested in participating in. Columbia is one of the only universities that offers a badminton team in the US. And that's actually
I didn't
something.
know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's something that really appealed to me because I've been playing badminton my entire life. And really the thing is people write things for their application essays,
Right.
but it has to actually be something coming from your heart because one, that's going to help you get in, but at the same time,
There's a difference, right, between getting in and actually succeeding once you're there.
precisely I feel even with the accommodation, think about whether that accommodation is actually going to work for you. If you're going to be happy living there with the facilities and infrastructure there.
Yes.
With the academics, think about whether you're going to be happy with stuff like class sizes.
Yeah.
With the clubs, as I mentioned before, I think
food, whatever matters. I was going to say whatever matters to you.
Whatever
food.
matters to you.
If you're vegan, then the options have to be good at the dining hall. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable.
I'm vegetarian. I've been vegetarian my entire life, and I feel it's easier in New York. You know that even if you don't find something in a dining hall, there's always restaurants around, and that's going to make your life easier.
Yeah.
I think because there's so many nuances to just living life, so many different aspects to consider.
The quality of your life.
Quality of your life, and your university is going to directly impact that. So
100%.
just going beyond whatever any particular ranking says on the internet, you really need to picture yourself in the university, not just for the application, but just for yourself, for your family.
So you obviously just recently got together with a lot of your classmates that graduated last year. Did you encounter any students that let the rankings lead them to a particular destination and they're unsatisfied with their experience there? Did anybody kind of share that with you or no?
I wouldn't say so. Again, the school that I come from, not many students choose to go to the US. The majority go to the UK or Europe. So I haven't had that experience from anyone who's gone to the US. But I think generally, I feel many students, once they have their acceptances, they do end up choosing somewhere that they think is going to fit based on those acceptances.
That's good.
I mean, that's something that I did as well.
Yes.
It was a hard decision, as I mentioned before, but I feel eventually looking back, I think we chose what worked best for us, for myself and for my mom, for my family. I think that's the most important thing that you can do because, again, it isn't just the place that you're going to get a degree from. It's
Correct.
much more than that.
It's a home.
It's a home.
Right. And I think the people you're surrounded by is actually the most important, part of the experience. That's what will stay with you, your alumni,
Your experiences.
your fellow classmates, the professors that you continue to stay in touch with. You'll forget like 90% of the, textbook stuff that you learned.
Majority of it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. Any cool traditions that you're looking forward to taking part in Colombia?
Honestly, I was really surprised that Colombia celebrates a lot of Indian festivals.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. We actually
You have a Bhangra team. I know that.
I think most US universities do, which is not something I knew before.
Yes.
But yeah, Holi was really fun at Columbia, actually.
So now, tell me, does everyone participate?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, the Indians, the Indian Americans.
Yes.
And then
But can I show up? Can I go there and throw some
I'm going to throw some color on you if
yes,
you show up,
I'm
Peter.
ready. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, I just feel, again, these are like moments that you underestimate, like walking into university, but these are memories that are going to like stick with you forever. Like, again, your university needs to be a place that you're going to be happy, a place where you're going to make memories, a place that not just whatever makes sense career-wise or academics-wise, because any university that you've gotten into is probably going to give you, you're going to learn like the same content in intermediate microeconomics at any university in the US, any university
Even the
in the
same
world.
textbook. If you're doing econ, you're usually
It's gonna
going to
be the
read
same
Mankiw from
exactly.
Harvard, right?
So that's not what's going to determine your life or determine your happiness.
Were you telling me that even the South Asian Students Association at Columbia is like super selective? They don't accept everybody. Is that true? That's also
true,
an exclusive club.
I don't know if that's just the culture at Columbia, but it keeps you on your toes. That's one good thing about it. Yeah.
Interesting. Fun. Closing thoughts that you'd like to share with any students that are thinking about, 2-3 years down the line, what they should be considering or, emphasizing in their journeys.
I think, as I said before, for 2-3 years down the line, the best thing is about finding your fit early on.
Do your homework. Do your homework. Know what you want.
Exactly. And make your essays. I mean, we always say to write authentically, but I can't understate that because it's just, you need to write something that clicks with you in your head because that's what's going to determine like where you want to go. Yeah. I'd say for someone who's just finished high school right now and is looking to go to university in the fall, the main piece of advice is spend your summer researching. Yes. Not in the traditional sense, but in the sense that you understand more about what life is like at that particular university. You've gotten and you've committed now. You're going there. Try and reach out on LinkedIn or find
connect
people,
with the older
connect with older people.
Yeah.
Just try and find a community and try and see where you would fit into that community.
Yeah. Amazing advice. Thank you, Arnav. Wishing you all the best at Columbia.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.